follow. As of today, I think our proposed bill will need to be amended because the timeline that we put in there is no longer feasible. And we will be doing this and submitting it to the chairman in short order.
Thank you.
But we urge the chairman to speak with the with the leadership of the House to try to expedite this issue. I mean, if we're going to do this, then we should do it. And if not, well, then we should all just take pause ourselves and try to solve the national problems in a different manner. So that is my manifestation for today, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Deputy Speaker Puno. And before we proceed, let me recognize our author of RBH 3 and 4, the Honorable King Richard Gomez. King Richard ang tawag ko nito. Thank you. Welcome to the committee. Congressman Len, would you care to have some preliminary statement?
Yes, Mr. Chairman. Can I please move for the approval of the minutes of the previous meeting?
Oh, good.
Thank you, sir.
So there is a motion to approve the minutes of the previous meeting. And a second? Second. It's been moved and seconded. Is there an objection? Hearing none, the motion is approved. Yeah. Okay, we also acknowledge the arrival of the Legal Division Chief of the Board of Investments, BOI, Attorney Kayla Samson. Welcome. Okay. Congressman Gomez, would you like to have some preliminary statement before we hear our resource persons who are ready to give their views on the different resolutions and bills filed in this committee?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Colleagues, good afternoon. I filed both RBH number 3, number 4, but for today, this is a measure that seeks to harmonize our legislative cycles and bring the upper chamber of Congress closer to the immediate pulse of the nation. Under our current 1987 Constitution, we operate with a fragmented system where Santos serves 6-year terms, while the House of Representatives and local officials serve only 3. This discrepancy often leads to a midterm disconnect where policy mandates of our 2 chambers fall out of sync, creating administrative complexities and a disjointed national agenda. RBH 4, Mr. Chair, proposes to amend Section 4, Article 6 of the Constitution to reduce the term of office for Santos from 6 years to 3 years. By doing so, we ensure that every single elective official, from the local councillor to the member of the Senate, is held to the same standard of frequent accountability. This transition would offer several key benefits, namely, I put in 3, Mr. Chair, greater responsiveness, where Santos would be required to seek a fresh mandate from the sovereign people, more frequently mirroring the responsiveness already required of this House and our local government units, a unified national agenda, second, and a streamlined governance. To balance this reduction in term length, Mr. Chair, this resolution also proposes to allow Santos to serve up to 3 consecutive terms rather than just 2 or 12 years. This ensures that while we increase the frequency of elections, we do not lose the institutional memory and legislative expertise that seasoned lawmakers provide to our government. We recognize that such a fundamental shift requires stability. The resolution includes transitory provisions to ensure a smooth adjustment. Mr. Chair, esteemed colleagues, it is time our legislative clock and the people's heartbeat resonate as one. By aligning our terms, we are not just changing a number in our Constitution. We are strengthening the bond of accountability between the government and the governed. Thank you so much. Magandang hapon sa lahat. Maayong hapon.
Thank you very much, our colleague, author of RBH number 4, which is really on initial deliberation of this committee. Yes. And we would like to consider your remarks now to be a sponsorship speech for the RBH number 4.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you very much. Now, we continue with the deliberation on the following measures. The COMSEC will please read the measures in summary.
Continuation of the deliberation of the following measures. HR number 460, a resolution calling for a constitutional convention to propose amendments to the 1987 Constitution, principally offered by Representatives Ronaldo V. Puno et al.
Please mention Congressman Oreta. because he is very much present here.
Ay, sorry po.
So
Yes.
primarily sponsored by
Principally-
DS, okay.
And then principally sponsored also by Representative Antolin Oreta Deferred.
Thank you. Please proceed.
House Bill number 5870, an act calling for a constitutional convention to propose amendments, revisions, corrections, and changes to the 1987 Constitution with the same authors.
So accompanying bill to the resolution is a House bill calling for a constitutional convention and prescribing composition and providing for appropriations. Please proceed with the next one.
House Bill number 3068, an act constituting a constitutional convention to amend the 1987 Philippine Constitution, defining qualification for its delegates, appropriating thereof, by Representative Bienvenido Abante. And then the fourth is the privileged speech of the Espuna on the same subject matter. Then number 5, RBH number 1.
Before that, just kindly complete the
Okay, sir.
the need to correct certain provisions of the 1987 Constitution. I would like to ask our Deputy Speaker, have you filed in writing this particular correction of certain provisions, this one, from your privilege speech?
I believe we have.
Sorry, the microphone. Po.
Yes, I believe we have, Mr. Chairman.
Yes, thank you very much. So we proceed to RBH number 1.
RBH number 1, a resolution of both houses proposing amendments to Article 1, National Territory, and certain economic provisions, specifically Articles 12, 14, and 17 of the 1987 Constitution of the Republic of the Philippines, authored by Representative Alfredo Garbin Jr.
Okay.
RBH number 2, a resolution of both houses of Congress proposing the call for a constitutional convention in order to propose amendments to Articles 6 and 7 of the 1987 Constitution of the Republic of the Philippines, lowering the minimum age requirements for President, Vice President, and Senator, thereby empowering the next generation of leaders, authored by Representative Francisco Paulo Ortega V, et al.
Yeah.
Then
The last one.
RBH number 3, resolution of both houses proposing amendments to specific economic provisions of the 1987 Constitution of the Republic of the Philippines, particularly on Articles 12, 14, and 16, authored by the Honorable Richard Gomez, DPA.
Thank you. With that, we are now ready to hear our confirmed resource persons. We start with the civil society organizations. Can you kindly read the first in the order that we have to be able to give their views on the pending resolutions and bills in the Committee on Constitutional Amendments?
The committee will hear first Attorney Doris Ramirez. She is the Executive Director of the Caucus of Development NGO Network, or Code NGO.
Yes, lady first, before the 3 gentlemen over there. And so we would like to therefore acknowledge
Thank you,
Attorney Doris Ramirez for your comments.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and good afternoon to everyone in the committee. The Caucus of Development NGO Networks, or Code NGO, expresses our appreciation to the Honorable House of Representatives Committee on Constitutional Amendments for the opportunity to participate in the public consultation on legislative measures proposing amendments to the 1987 Constitution. As previously mentioned, Code NGO is a national network consisting of 7 national networks and 3 regional networks, wherein we have a base organizations of around 1,800 civil society and people's organizations nationwide. We are engaged in governance reform, human rights advocacy, community development, and citizen participation. Through our work with communities and partner organizations across the country, Code NGO advocates for democratic governance, transparency, accountability, and meaningful public participation in policymaking. Nearly 4 decades after its certification, we believe that it is but reasonable to examine whether the provisions of the 1987 Constitution remain responsive to evolving political, social, and economic realities. However, constitutional reform must be approached with prudence and broad consultation, recognizing that the Constitution embodies the democratic aspirations and fundamental safeguards of the Filipino people. Discussions on constitutional reform are taking place within the governance environment where public trust in institutions, unfortunately, has been affected by persistent concerns regarding corruption, misuse of public resources, and weaknesses in accountability mechanisms. Public controversies involving corruption in various sectors of government have contributed to declining levels of public confidence in institutions. In many communities, these concerns are compounded by the persistence of patronage politics and the concentration of political power in certain localities. In this context, the legitimacy of constitutional reform becomes particularly important. Constitutional changes undertaken without sufficient transparency, independence, and public participation may risk further weakening public trust in democratic institutions. For these reasons, discussions on constitutional reform must reinforce integrity, accountability, and meaningful citizen participation in governance. As to the mode of constitutional reform, the 1987 constitutions provide several mechanisms through which amendments or revision may be proposed. Among these, Code NGO believes that a constitutional convention provides the most appropriate mechanism for undertaking a comprehensive review of the Constitution. A constitutional convention allows delegates elected specifically for the purpose of constitutional review to deliberate on proposed reforms. This process minimizes potential conflicts of interest and strengthens the legitimacy of constitutional change. It also enables participation from civil society organizations, academic institutions, constitutional experts, and representatives from different sectors of society. Given the importance of restoring and maintaining public trust in governance, an independent and participatory constitutional reform process is essential. With regard to the Senate term and constitutional continuity, with all due respect, Code NGO respectfully expresses strong reservations regarding proposals to reduce the term of senators from 6 years to 3 years. The present constitutional design of the Senate, 6-year terms with staggered elections every 3 years, was deliberately crafted to promote institutional stability, legislative continuity, and thoughtful policymaking. Unlike most elective officials whose mandates are limited to local constituencies, senators are elected at the national level. Similar to the president and vice president, senators represent the entire Filipino electorate rather than a particular province or district. Because of this national mandate, senators must address complex policy issues affecting the entire country and exercise oversight over national institutions. The longer term allows the Senate to function as a deliberate chamber capable of sustained legislative deliberation and careful review of national policy. It is also worth recalling that the framers of the 1987 Constitution, through the 1986 Constitutional Commission, intentionally structured the Senate to function as a stabilizing institution within the legislative branch. The 6-year term and staggered elections were designed to preserve continuity in national policy making and ensure that the Senate retains experienced members capable of providing institutional memory and independent deliberation. We believe that shortening the Senate term to 3 years may place senators in near continuous electoral cycles, potentially shifting attention toward short-term political considerations rather than sustained legislative work and long-term national policy making. Maintaining the existing structure of the Senate therefore continues to support the institutional balance envisioned by the framers of the Constitution. With respect to youth participation and age qualification for national offices, Code NGO recognizes the importance of encouraging youth participation and leadership in governance. The Philippines has a long tradition of youth engagement in civic movements and democratic reforms. Expanding opportunities for younger leaders to contribute to national leadership may enrich democratic participation. In principle, discussions on revisiting the constitutional age requirements for national offices may be considered. However, any adjustments must ensure that leadership qualifications continue to reflect the responsibilities associated with national office. Such proposals should therefore be examined carefully within the context of a broader constitutional reform process. With respect to economic provision and national development, the economic provision of the Constitution have long been the subject of policy discussions, particularly regarding foreign investment, regulatory frameworks, and national development strategies. While economic policies may evolve in response to changing global conditions, constitutional amendments affecting these provisions must balance economic competitiveness with protection of national patrimony and promotion of inclusive development. A comprehensive constitutional review process would therefore provide a more appropriate forum for evaluating the broader implication for such reforms. We believe the civil society organization not only historically played an important role in strengthening democratic governance in the Philippines, but ensuring meaningful participation of civil society in constitutional reform discussions helps ensures that perspectives of communities, marginalized sectors, and citizens outside of traditional political structures are reflected in the national deliberations. Lastly, we propose that the following principles guide any effort to amend or revise the Constitution. First, strengthening democratic institutions and checks and balances, promoting integrity, transparency, and accountability in governance, ensuring meaningful citizen participation in constitutional reform, protecting national interests, inclusive development, and balancing reform with institutional stability. Ultimately, constitutional reform must strengthen democratic institutions, reinforce accountability and governance, and restore public trust in the country's constitutional framework. Maraming salamat po.
Just to clarify, so on the mode, because this will be the template for this afternoon's discussion, first, our resource persons will request to state whether what mode you wish to be the one that will be adopted by the committee for the plenary and to be sent to the Senate. Either a constituent assembly or a constitutional commission. Now, Attorney Ramirez is saying you are in favor of a constitutional convention. Now, as to the Senate, did not get very much. You are for the Senate. What is your position in the Senate?
We are not in favor, Mr. Chair, to reduce the 6 years term into 3 years.
In reaction to one of the bills, but is the structure as is, nationally elected at large, and then no lowering of term. And then you said about economic provisions, and I just confirm this, that it should be balanced between allowing investments and at the same time protecting our industries. Okay.
Yes,
so
Mr.
mainly those are the points that you have really given. So now, before we proceed, I'd like to acknowledge the presence of our Deputy Minority Leader, the Honorable Antonio Tinio of ACT Teachers Party List. Thank you for coming. We have Vice Chairperson from the City of Baguio, Lone District, Vice Chairperson, Honorable Maurice Domogan. Thank you. And also the Vice Chairperson from Batangas, 3rd District, my good friend, King George Colliantes. I know his father and mother more. Anyway, so thank you very much for coming. And so now we proceed. Comsec, who is the next in the order of presentation?
The second speaker would be Dr. Emmanuel Doy Santos of the Philippine Council of Management.
Recognized. Please proceed.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and honorable members of this committee. Good afternoon. I'm Dr. Emmanuel Candido Soriente Santos II from the Philippine Council of Management, or PhilCoMan, the oldest management body in the Philippines representing senior leaders in business, government, and academia. Part of our mission, as stated in our articles and bylaws, is to promote good governance and best corporate practices and to disseminate them at national, regional, and global levels. It is in this vein that I appear before this committee today to discuss the merits of the proposed bills and resolutions calling primarily for the convening of a constitutional convention. If this measure is passed, Your Honors, it will be only the 6th time in our history that we convene a body to craft the basic law of the land. The first was at the Malolos Congress in 1899, after our declaration of independence from Spain. The second was drafted by a convention in 1935 during the American Commonwealth era. The third, hammered out by a commission under Japanese occupation in 1943. The fourth, performed by a convention again during the tumultuous period of 71 to 73. And the fifth was promulgated by a commission in 87 after the People Power Revolution. 2 of these constitutions were formed under colonial rule, 2 following our independence. 4 adopted a unicameral system, 2 were bicameral. 2 had chief executives elected by the National Assembly. 2 had them separately elected by the people. And 1 was semi-presidential, where executive power was split. There were 2 periods when we adopted block voting for the Senate under the Commonwealth era and for the interim batasan in 1978. All of them were unitary, none were federalist, although the current one allows for local and regional autonomy. In terms of the economy, I have previously put before this committee at its deliberations over RBH 6 that since 1902 there has been a steady increase in the provisions restricting foreign ownership and participation in trades and professions. Only the Malolos Constitution was truly liberal, with a small l, liberal, in that it permitted foreigners to engage in any trade or profession, subject to the rules and policies of the land. It was the Philippine Organic Act of 1902 by the U.S. Congress that first introduced restrictions on their own citizens from owning vast tracts of land, engaging in mining, banking, and utilities, as the Republican President, Teddy Roosevelt, added a sweetener for Democrats in the U.S. House of Representatives who needed reassuring that no permanent American interests would set up here and compete with their farmers in the Dixiecrat South. It was only on their way out that the Americans sought to grant parity rights to their citizens as a condition for providing us with reconstruction assistance after the war. These parity rights were adopted as an amendment to the 1935 Constitution, and they lapsed in 1974 under martial law. The U.S. President and framer of its Declaration of Independence, Thomas Jefferson, argued that the average life of a constitution should be 19 years. His reasoning was that, quote, the earth belongs to the living generation, and that no generation has the right to bind future generations to their laws and debts. He argued to the Federalist James Madison in 1789, quote, every constitution then and every law naturally expires at the end of 19 years. If it be enforced longer, it is an act of force and not of right, close quote. Jefferson calculated the 19-year rule based on the mortality tables at the time, as the length of time it takes for most of a generation to pass away. Of course, today, we could argue that the length of time should be closer to 40 years. And in fact, between Malolos and the Commonwealth constitutions spanned 36 years. Between 35 and 73 was again 36 years, if you take away the Japanese occupation. Between 87 and today is 39 years. So it would seem, Your Honors, based on our history, we might be already overdue for a constitutional overhaul. But all kidding aside, the questions remain. Is there a true, genuine need for constitutional revision? And why a convention? Why now? And how do we call for it? Not a single amendment has been made to our present Constitution in nearly 40 years. This is remarkable, but it hasn't been for lack of trying. Serious attempts have been made since the 1990s up until now to change or amend the present constitution, targeting its political and economic provisions, either through a people's initiative, Mr. Chair, or through a joint sitting of Congress. So far, none have been successful, but that doesn't mean that significant lessons haven't been learned along the way. What has moved forward, Your Honors, during this time were some constitutional workarounds, such as the use of the Mining Technical Assistance Agreements, or MTAAs, to get around the foreign restrictions to mining. The Public Sector Act, that sought to distinguish certain public services from utilities to allow majority foreign stake in energy generation, for one. Finally, there's the Investors Lease Act, allowing the extension of long-term leases for foreign investors to get around the restrictions on ownership of land. These workarounds, however, were common sense based but have serious limitations, Mr. Chair. In 2023, the Supreme Court struck down the joint marine seismic undertaking entered into by the Philippines with governments of Vietnam and China, signed back in 2005. The court ruled that oil exploration is subject to the 60-40 rule. One wonders whether the West Philippine Sea scenario today would have been calmer if this JSMU had proceeded. Currently, there are several changes to the several challenges, to the PSA Act, pending before the Supreme Court. Now, the reputational damage to the Philippines if the court rules against it would be incalculable, Your Honors, since it would invalidate billions worth of investments that are currently committed primarily to our renewable energy sector. As a quality management principle, we teach that to address recurring problems, it is best to get to the root cause rather than to attempt workarounds, especially if these workarounds themselves fail, as they have in those cases I cited. In the case of our Constitution, its verbosity tends to frequent judicial review. This creates a litigious environment, Your Honors, that fosters gridlock to efficient and effective governance. Imagine having to wait 20 years only to find out that the agreement you signed in good faith was invalid. This extended review discourages investment due to the uncertainty that it breeds. The verbosity of our Constitution in non-economic provisions have also allowed the Supreme Court to weigh in and disrupt proceedings. I don't need to remind Your Honors that events of the past year with respect to Article 11, accountability of public officers, Section 3, have convinced even strident opponents of constitutional change to now take the position that it is needed. After the Supreme Court declared as unconstitutional this chamber's articles of impeachment. As a result, one could argue the process for bringing public officials to account has been made unduly cumbersome and unnecessarily bureaucratic. The framers of the Charter did not adhere to the principle of brevity in constitutional law. This principle dictates a constitution should be concise, focused on fundamental principles rather than detailed statutory-like provisions. This approach ensures that the document remains adaptable to the changing times and reduces necessity for frequent amendments, including de facto amendments by judicial interpretation. Secondly, it violated the principle of clarity, particularly in Article 17, amendments or revisions. The framers clumsily, and for a lack of a better word, hastily written provisions on the method of amending the Constitution have prevented any changes from occurring over the past 4 decades. The principle of clarity is rooted in legal certainty. It mandates that legal norms must be unambiguous, accessible, and predictable to prevent arbitrary application. In our company handbooks and manuals, if the same had been written, they would have been revised long ago. One cannot run a company, let alone a nation, with such vague, seemingly self-contradictory language. Next, in addressing the question, why a convention, there seems to have been a consensus forming around this view. Mr. Manolo Quezon III, the explainer, who needs no introduction, has written extensively on this, saying in his blog in February 23 quote, "I've always argued it would be hard to oppose a convention if it were proposed by Congress and an election called for the purpose of electing delegates," close quote. In his column for the Daily Inquirer on October 25, he opined, quote, "In the case of our present Constitution, many of its bedrock theories or experiments have proven to be failures because of how the document was written. The solution is an elected constitutional convention because the public has consistently viewed it as legitimate," close quote. Of course, his motivations for pushing for a CONCON are starkly different from others. He wants to strip the 87 Constitution of what he calls well-meaning but ultimately flawed experiments and revert to the 35 Constitution. Of course, we cannot blame him given his ancestry. But other bills filed in this chamber seek to change other provisions, Your Honors. All of these are feasible under a convention setup, which can tackle all of them, as its scope is the entire Constitution, should the body wish, by definition of a convention. Then there's the question of why now and how to call for it. The ordinary man on the street will ask that. Why now, while we are in the midst of an oil shock, geopolitical shifts, and as we confront another divisive impeachment process? Embedded in that question is, what is the real underlying motives for calling for a CONCON? Is it for self-serving reasons? In time management frameworks, there's a principle that states we need to distinguish the urgent from the important. This is the core of effective productivity, helping to shift from a reactive, stressed state to a proactive, strategic one. The fundamental difference lies in time sensitivity and long-term value. Urgent tasks shout now and demand for immediate attention, while important tasks contribute to long-term goals. And if we are to reach our long-term goal and vision under the SDGs and ambition natin, we have to focus on the important, fixing the constitutions. Finally, there is the question of how do we call for a convention. Article 17, Section 3 specifies two possible modes when it states the Congress may, by a vote of 2/3 of all its members, call a CONCON, or the second option, by a majority vote of all its members, submit to the electorate the question of calling such a convention. Mr. Chair, it is my humble opinion that the second option, which is often overlooked, although it adds an extra step, has a lower threshold of a simple majority of members of both chambers to put the question of calling for a convention to the people. This would make the process even more democratic and settle the suspicions of those who object to it based on timing and hidden motives. And in the current climate of hostility towards political dynasties, if they so decide to call for a convention, it's my humble opinion, Your Honors, why not have an anti-dynasty provision in the election of delegates like we do for barangay, SK, and BARM? That would settle all issues around self-serving political motives. How or when would be the opportune time to put the question of calling a convention to the people? Well, the upcoming barangay elections, Your Honor, scheduled for later this year in November, could perhaps be considered. There would be no question at that point. If the people decide yes, then Congress would be authorized to call for that convention. My humble recommendation would be to keep the question simple and direct. Do you agree with the proposition to call for a convention? The chances of success are higher if there are no caveats and conditions attached. And with that, I conclude my remarks. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Santos. So, Philcommand first has the position that it will be as to mode a constitutional convention.
Yes, Your Honor.
And you're saying that the best way is to have that referendum by the people instead of the Congress legislating for a CONCON.
It could be either, Your Honor.
Either, okay.
But the second option, as I stated,
It's more democratic
has a
and
lower
more.
threshold.
Okay. Thank you. As to economic amendments, I understand you are in favor of opening it up to foreign investments because the turnarounds are not sufficient. Is that the position? Good.
Yes, sir.
Next is about the political amendments. What do you propose in case there's a convention? What are the important changes that you wish to initiate?
Well, the field command, Your Honor, does not have a particular
On that,
stand
okay.
on that, but it will be open
Yeah.
when the convention is
Yeah.
held.
Thank you. Very clear. So thank you very much. I may now acknowledge the arrival of our Deputy Majority Leader, Congressman Arnan Panaligan. Thank you very much for your presence. Okay. So next to Dr. Santos will be
The Executive Director of Ibon Foundation, Mr. Sani Africa.
yes, Mr. Sani Africa is recognized.
Magandang hapon. Thank you, Mr. Chair, for the invitation. To try to speed things up, I made a presentation. That's also to apologize for not being able to submit the position paper in time, but we definitely will. Well, of course, we thank the committee for the invitation. The Constitution is so important. We think all views are quite important to be heard. Numbers often confound, but in this case, we hope that they will help make things a little bit clearer. In particular, we believe at Ibon that the committee will benefit from questioning the conventional wisdom. The conventional wisdom is, well, by definition, it's very comfortable, it's very predictable, but we argue that the conventional wisdom hinders critical thinking, creativity, and innovation. Three questions were given to us at Ibon. We've tried to answer as straightforwardly as we can in as short a time as we can, but we also did provide some charts to try to sort of give some more clarity to that. On the first question, Ibon Foundation is categorically not in favor of removing the protective nationalist economic provisions, i.e. the foreign investment restrictions of the 87 Constitution. We argued that the core claim behind economic cha-cha is that the Constitution is what keeps out investment and development. We believe that is an erroneous notion. We believe that removing the economic safeguards of the Constitution is based on a misleading diagnosis of the Philippines' development problems. The country's economic underperformance does not arise primarily from constitutional restrictions on foreign ownership, but from the absence of sustained industrial policy, from premature liberalization, and the resulting weak domestic productive capacity. We have three general points we'd like to make, and again, I apologize in advance for the numbers and charts, but I think they will be made clear. Could we move to the next slide, please? Okay. Core conclusion that the charts want to show: foreign direct investment in the Philippines right now is at a record high, $125.5 billion as of 2024. This is equivalent to 27.2% of GDP. The chart on the left shows these numbers. The blue bar shows the absolute amounts of foreign investment. I think it's quite clear that since the 2000s, we've seen foreign investment cumulatively increase. But the line also shows that foreign investment measured as a share of GDP is actually quite high at 27.2%. We also argue, however, that while FDI in the Philippines is at a record high, both in absolute terms, but also as a share of GDP, it is curious for us, and I think a point of reflection, that manufacturing has fallen to its smallest share of the economy in 76 years, since 1949, down to 17.2%, and agriculture is down to its smallest in the country's history, 7.9%, again, as of last year. The chart on the right shows those corresponding figures. We argue that the Philippines does already have large and rising foreign investment, even under the existing charter, especially as mentioned by the earlier resource person. Major liberalization has been done through ordinary laws in recent years. But we think the key conclusion is important. Industrial and agricultural decline is also categorical. The data, we think, is quite clear. This doesn't suggest, we think it confirms that, quote-unquote, too little FDI was never the binding constraint to Philippine development. The structural constraints to Philippine development are more difficult, and none of these are addressed by removing foreign ownership limits. When we're talking about deindustrialization, premature service expansion, agricultural stagnation, energy prices among the highest in Asia, high infrastructure and logistics costs, actually weak state coordination of industrial policy, and persistent oligarchic concentration of economic and political power, opening up the economy to foreign investment does not address any of that. Next slide, please. Again, I apologize for the, it's not very visible for everyone, but I think the conclusion is quite important. The chart is the table is important because this shows foreign direct investment inflows of the Philippines, South Korea, Taiwan, and China. It compares foreign direct investment inflows in South Korea, Taiwan, and China during their periods of economic takeoff in the 60s and 70s, and it shows where the Philippines is today. Key conclusion, affirming that more foreign investment hasn't developed the Philippines, but I think very many will be surprised. Measured as a share of GDP, the Philippines today has more foreign investment than South Korea, Taiwan, and China did during their respective periods of economic takeoff. The 28% share of FDI that the Philippines has right now compares much, much more unfavorably in our estimation to how it was with Taiwan, South Korea, and China. In their cases, when their economies took off, they only had less than 1%, 0.7% to 5% of GDP. So I think in absolute terms, of course, you have to take inflation into account, but the most comparable measure as a share of GDP, the Philippines right now has many, many times more foreign investment than South Korea, Taiwan, and China. That's a very key point because these late industrializers that we all look up to right now, they develop and advance today with relatively less foreign investment than the Philippines. Even today, South Korea, Taiwan, and China only have the equivalent of 16 to 18% of GDP of foreign investment. Key point, I think, to take away from that, if you look at their investment policies and, more importantly, their industrialization policies, they had the wisdom and the insight that foreign investment only helps when disciplined by state development strategy. With that means very heavily regulating foreign investment for national development and deliberately building national firms and national supply chains, not just as an address for foreign capital, but actually as the foundation of domestic economic development. In contrast, in the case of the Philippines, liberalization without that industrialization strategy has deepened our import dependence, which we complain about so much today. It has deepened our profit repatriation and weakened our domestic productive base. When we talk about foreign investment in enclaves, they're called enclaves for a reason. They're enclaves because they're very low added segments, not just in global supply chains, but they're also low value added sectors of the economy. Bottom line, the experience of South Korea, Taiwan, and China, positive, and the experience of the Philippines, extremely negative, confirms more FDI, more foreign investment is not the same as more development. The next slide, please. Again, I quite appreciate the earlier resource person's comment about geopolitical shocks. I don't think very many people are aware that global foreign direct investment inflows are weakening amid protracted global low growth, growing protectionism, and geopolitical and geoeconomic volatility. The peak of foreign investment global flows was in the year 2000. They were equivalent to 4% of global FDI. Since then, they have continuously fallen, now to just an equivalent of 1.5% of global GDP. That's the orange line right there. The blue bar shows absolute amounts of foreign investment flows, flattening since the 2008-2009 global financial crisis. The orange line shows declining share of foreign investment as a share of GDP. What is the point? The point being that it does not make sense amid slowing global FDI flows for the Philippines to peg its national development strategy on a well that is running dry. We argue that points to the need for more domestic-driven, more Filipino-driven national development. Next slide. Our answer to the next question for the first, well, because of the points already raised, our preferred mode is neither, because we don't support constitutional amendments. Having said that, we do recognize that a constitutional convention is the lesser evil in a very high-risk political environment, which I'm sure many resource persons have already spoken about. On the last question, we categorically oppose amendments. We think there's a very high-risk political environment for that. But if made to give an answer, we can conceive improvements that do expand policy space for structural transformation, domestic capacity building, and democratic economic governance. We have, in general terms, we have actually 10 specified amendments. I won't go through all of them right now, but just to capture the spirit of that, first, we believe that the Philippines, under the current 87 Constitution, it does actually still have some space to pursue Filipino-driven national development strategies. Having said that, these constitutional amendments we propose are actually meant to more directly support the structural economic development that we need, but most importantly, it's grounded not just in bankrupt and disproven textbook economics, but based on the development state principles and the experience of successful late industrializers. So the general direction of our proposed improvements, if they need to be done, it's not opening up, it's not removing economic safeguards, it's, if anything, providing clear constitutional mandates, not maximal constitutional detail, as already mentioned earlier, that could be difficult, but we want clear constitutional mandates to expand policy space for structural transformation, including national industrialization, for domestic capacity building, and for democratic economic governance. Again, I won't read through, but our 10 proposals are regarding the mandate for national industrial development. The next slide lists 3 more proposals for agricultural modernization, for national development planning, and I think quite important, for strategic management of foreign investment, as every country that has developed has done. Next slide, please. Important stress on Filipino enterprise development, providing development finance for Filipino enterprises, and providing support for Filipino technology and innovation. And finally, again, supporting the restrictions to protect Philippine sovereignty, provisions on strategic natural resource management, on the regulation of strategic sectors like oil, which we're beating our breasts about right now, and public utilities, and of course, labor rights and inclusive growth. To conclude, we do believe that the Constitution should be development-oriented. The current Constitution is extremely imperfect, but it does provide policy space that we have not used in the last 40 years. We argue that a development-oriented constitution should protect policy space for transformation, not lock the country into passive integration into global markets. No country has ever developed by recklessly opening up to global markets, as the Philippines has been doing for the past 40 years, explaining manufacturing falling to its smallest share in 80 years, agriculture falling to its smallest share in the country's history. The key question, we argue, is not how do we remove restrictions to foreign investment? The key question is how do we build the Filipino institutions and Filipino policy framework capable of transforming the Philippine economy? Foreign direct investment, that's there as a tool. Tools can be used very badly. Tools can be used to kill ourselves. We want a constitution aligned with development that ensures economic openness serving national development, not the other way around. Development depends on building domestic productive capabilities, especially Philippine industrialization, not simply the narrow-minded, simplistic notion of maximizing foreign investment inflows. Thank you.
Thank you. It's quite clear, but to be more precise, Ibon Foundation does not agree to a constitutional amendment.
Categorically, we don't, especially with the provisions. We haven't,
Secondly, you don't believe that the FDIs will be an impetus for growth for this country, correct?
Without the right policy environment of national industrialization, no.
And therefore, you are stating that we should now just develop Filipino industrialization and agricultural improvement.
With the current policy framework, it is possible, yes.
Thank you. So we have a very clear presentation here. Thank you, Zani. Okay, next will be
Mr. Orion Perez Dumdum, the co-founder and lead convener of Correct Movement.
Yeah, correct movement through Dr. Dumdum is not recognized.
Okay. Yeah, just a correction. I'm not a doctor. I'm just an ordinary, long-time OFW. And
That's more
advocate
than a
for-
doctor. Please proceed.
All right. Warm greetings to all. Before I start, we'll just give a little bit of corrections on some of what we heard earlier. Actually, what we heard earlier about the rise in FDI in the Philippines was did not take into account the fact that the Philippine population has actually greatly increased, such that we need more jobs. And even with the entry of foreign direct investors, they are not enough to create enough jobs for this huge population compared to what we had 50 years ago. On the other hand, there was also the set of countries that were mentioned, two of which are under heavy U.S. protection, heavy U.S. They receive a lot of military aid and other things, especially when they were starting. So although the figures appear lower than the Philippines, they actually had a huge jump start from reparations from Japan, particularly in the case of South Korea, and in the case of both of them, American, assistance, heavy American assistance, plus the fact that Taiwan was helped by the fact that there was massive monetary gold treasures taken from the mainland China. So mainland China, the wealth of mainland China were brought in by the rich people fleeing, and they went to Taiwan and brought that wealth with them, which is what helped Taiwan have the domestic resources that they needed to set up these businesses. All right, so knowing that time is limited, I will go straight to the point, and based on the more than 16 years of research that my group, The Correct Movement, and I have conducted over the years, I will talk about the three main reforms that need to be done in order to have a good new constitution that we deserved to have way back in 1987, but unfortunately we're not able to have due to the haste with which the proceedings of the 1986 Constitutional Commission were conducted. And so the end result was that emotional sentiment prevailed over detailed and deliberate analysis and comprehensive factual research. Wala pa silang Google noon, wala pa silang internet noon. So unfortunately, they did not have the same access to information that we have today. Moreover, the issue of what alternatives existed that should have been adopted weren't carefully considered given the limited time frame of just around 4 months that was given to them. Nagmadali sila. My advocacy movement is known as the Correct Movement, and Correct stands for Constitutional Reform and Rectification for Economic Competitiveness and Transformation. So as you will all understand, economic competitiveness, economic development, and the achievement of a prosperous Philippines is the aim of the reforms that we are pushing for. I am here to express very strong support for the initiation of steps towards the setting up of a new constitution for the Philippines, even if it's done using a constituent assembly.
Beg your indulgence, we have the presence of Congresswoman Ana Tuazon, Deputy Majority Leader, but she has also to leave.
Okay.
So therefore, before she leaves, she is recognized to be present. Thank you.
Okay. So, continue,
please proceed.
To continue,
Mr.
I was
Dumdum.
just saying that in order to have a new constitution, I am okay with a constituent assembly if that actually works. But the constituent assembly is best done for the fastest and easiest reforms to make, which is the removal of anti-foreign investment restrictions. However, for other reforms that have to do with the structure, political system, etc., those will need to be done through a constitutional convention. And due to the lack of, basically it's easier to do a constitutional convention. There's going to be more support for it by more people. This, I believe, is the best way forward. Constitutional convention that will overhaul, update, and or upgrade our systems so that the Philippines can once again become not just competitive within Southeast Asia and the world, but more importantly, to achieve our rightful place as one of its most progressive and most prosperous, if not just within our region, but also in the world, because we, as a people, have a lot of talent. Given the tediousness of the process of setting up the Constitutional Convention, and the limited amount of time left within this administration, it is 2026 now, and 2028 elections are just around the corner, I can foresee that the actual Constitutional Convention is very likely to start only after the next administration is in place. I am saying this to anyone watching who is going to say, ayaw nating mangyari ngayon during this administration. Look, it's not likely to happen in this administration, but we need to start the steps. Before I begin, let me first explain some basics. Number one, Filipinos are not really unique. Many of our flaws as a society were once upon a time present and abundant in other countries like Singapore and Malaysia and Indonesia and even Ireland and other countries all around the world and many others back then, back when they were just as poor or even poorer than us. But because they have largely developed their economies to different degrees, their cultures and their behaviors have improved, and many of these flaws, in common with us, have probably decreased or gone away. The Philippines has not improved much socially and economically, and so many of our flaws either remain or have worsened. Number two, culture is not static. We adapt based on the structure and environment we are in. Filipinos who go abroad tend to assimilate and do what the people in their host countries do. In Singapore, we strictly follow the rules. In Northern Europe, we end up becoming punctual and time conscious. But we need not go abroad to see changes in human behavior. A Filipino driver who is a kaskasero driver on EDSA, upon entering Ayala Alabang and seeing all the signs about radar, speed monitoring, and apprehension, violators will be apprehended, suddenly becomes very careful. When going into Subic or SBMA, unruly drivers suddenly follow the rules. Number three, when systems incentive schemes change, behavior changes. Do not assume that what Filipinos currently do under this current system is what Filipinos will continue to do, both voters and politicians, is what Filipinos will continue to do once we have a new system in place. These basics I mentioned are necessary so that everyone understands how the reforms will work. All right, so let's go to the three main reforms that I want to talk about. Number one, we need a new constitution that is completely silent on matters of economic restrictiveness. No other constitution in ASEAN and apparently in the rest of the world has 60-40 or 70-30 restrictions written in their constitutions outside of the 1987 Constitution of the Philippines. We need a constitution that no longer has explicit and numerical restrictions against foreigners and foreign direct investors that would bar them from participating in the Philippine economy and even in the Philippine educational system, and instead cause any need for regulations and restrictions to be placed solely in legislation or in executive policy. So I'm not saying no restrictions. Sabi ko, pwede naman. Wag lang sa konstitusyon. Okay? Openness to foreign direct investors allows us to have companies coming in who will create many jobs and other business opportunities in the Philippines. When a large foreign-owned factory opens in an area, numerous local businesses open up to service the numerous employees and workers nearby, as well as their families. It is not true that opening up to foreign investors means that only the foreigners will prosper. Very, very, very often, when a large foreign company comes in and sets up a large factory, 5, 10, 20 or more new local Filipino businesses sprout out within its vicinity. Local Filipinos now have more jobs, and local Filipino businessmen prosper alongside the new foreign business. That is number one. Number two, we need a new structure of territorial and geographical administration that sets up a framework of evolving federalism, meaning may transition, hindi nagmamadali, hindi yung immediately federal na tayo. I mean, there's going to be a phased transition into this. This is the most logical way to bring about economic decentralization that would spread development to the regions and the provinces, as well as the decongestion of the already overcrowded and overpolluted and overcongested Imperial Manila, as well as ensure that the rights of cultural expression of the various ethno-linguistic identities within the entire country are better respected and given better space. We should also remove the ridiculous idea of removing the most prosperous and most prominent cities from the provinces to make them report to the national government. This is, by the way, coming from Article 10, Section 12. Evolving federalism and allowing the provinces to keep their most prosperous cities to remain within their jurisdiction means allowing the rest of the country to develop, not just Imperial Manila. That is number 2. Number 3, we need a new constitution that shifts away from the defective to the defective presidential system to the already proven to be superior and better performing, less prone to corruption, more efficient, less personality-oriented, and more party and platform-centric parliamentary system. Under a parliamentary system, if you have a good leader, that leader can continue on in office as long as he or she continues to produce great results. But the moment the leader makes a huge mistake and becomes a burden to his or her own party, that leader can be easily replaced. Parliamentary systems are necessary to ensure superior quality leadership and foster greater operational efficiency and greater transparency and accountability, with more eyes watching, dissuading anyone with sticky fingers from easily getting their hands in the cookie jar kasi maraming nakabantay. Those are the 3 main reforms. But we have another set. And this bolsters the need for, again, more reasons for constitutional convention. We need other ancillary reforms, such as the removal of the ban of traditional titles of nobility and royalty for ethnic groups that have long traditionally had these. For example, Muslim ethnic groups from the Bangsamoro region who have sultans, rajas, datus, and all these other titles they've had long ago. If Indonesia can be a republic while at the same time recognize the Sultanate of Yogyakarta, having the Sultanate of Yogyakarta act as their governor, it should be possible for Bangsamoro communities in Muslim Mindanao and the Philippines to continue their traditions and have their hereditary sultans and other nobles have ceremonial positions within the context of a parliamentary system within their regions. Moreover, another extra reform is the symbolic recognition of both Spanish and Arabic as historical heritage languages of lowland Christian Filipinos and Muslim Filipinos, respectively. The late Blas Ople lamented that when the Philippines removed the official status of the Spanish language, to him, it was as if we had disinvited ourselves from the original international community of fellow former Spanish colonies. Let us all remember historically, in World War II, when Mexico decided to join the Allies against the Axis after a German submarine sank a Mexican oil tanker, the Mexicans eventually decided not to send a team of soldiers or military men to Germany to fight the Nazis. They decided instead to send a team of Air Force pilots, the Águila Aztecas, to help with the liberation of the Philippines against the Empire of Japan, because the Mexicans felt that we were their brother country in Asia, a fellow former Spanish colony, fellow Spanish-speaking country at that time, and they felt they would rather help a brother in need. While it is already too late to make Spanish an official language once again, we can at least give it some symbolic or ceremonial recognition as a heritage language, since, after all, historians wanting to specialize in Philippine history will need to go through documents written in Spanish anyway. All right, so those are some of the things. I said both Spanish and Arabic. So Spanish for the lowland Christian Filipinos, Arabic for the Bangsamoro Filipinos. Let's go into some details.
Please,
yes.
we don't have material time because
Yes,
there will be
yes.
session at 3 o'clock.
Yes, of
Can
course.
we just wrap up and your conclusion, the main points that we want to hear
Yes,
from
yes.
Mr. Dumdum? Yeah.
Okay. So, I'm pretty sure it's very clear. Removal of all anti-foreign direct investment restrictions. Tanggalin natin lahat. If we need anything to be for regulation or restrictive purposes, legislation na lang. Diba? Now, we had a problem of corruption. Everybody's talking about corruption. It turns out that if we actually bring in more foreign direct investors, according to the research of Felipe Larraín and Jose Tavares, both Chilean economists, they came up with the research that shows that the higher the percentage of GDP that is taken up by FDI, the lower the corruption. And they made sure the causal direction is not you have to be not corrupt so that the foreign investors will come in. No, theirs was even if you are corrupt but you bring in foreign investors, bababa ang corruption. And they proved it in their research. So we can all look it up, okay? Larraín and Tavares. There's a lot of other research that shows also that FDI will improve job creation, improve economic development, and there is this research paper by the NBER, the National Bureau of Economic Research, based in Cambridge, Massachusetts, that shows that whenever you have more economic development, even without outright explicitly fighting corruption, just having an improvement in the economy, corruption levels go down. That also was something found out by the NBER in their research. So this we can make sure that as long as we concentrate on really developing the economy, creating more jobs, etc., even corruption itself will go down. Another set of things that we need to do is, again, shift to parliamentary. Why? Parliamentary systems have been proven to be less prone to corruption than presidential systems. This is proven by the empirical research by the World Bank done by Dr. Daniel Lederman, Dr. Norman Loaiza, and Dr. Rodrigo Suarez, where they found that parliamentary systems are less prone to corruption than presidential systems. A separate study, totally separate from this group of 3 economists, was done by Boston University. There are 2 researchers there. One was Dr. John Gehring, a political science professor, and the other one is Dr. Strom Thacker, an international studies professor, also at Boston University. Again, they had the same findings. Parliamentary systems are less prone to corruption than presidential systems. If we look at if we compare, for example, Transparency International's Corruption Perceptions Index, we look at the top 30 countries versus the bottom 30, the most corrupt countries, we will see that most of the least corrupt countries in that 30 group, they are mostly parliamentary. And most of those that are in the most corrupt are presidential. So I think it's very clear now. There's also extra research. Again, sorry, I'll be...
Yeah, can you wind up? Because
I'll be winding up soon. Yes. Again, more research, no? According to Gülcan Özkan, an economist from Turkey, and Richard McManus, a finance professor who's British, they did a research paper which shows that parliamentary systems produce superior economic outcomes.
Yeah, so just to clarify, first, Dr. Dumdum, you are for correct movement. You are in favor of a constitutional convention.
Convention, yes.
You are saying that in the political aspect of the Constitution, you are stating that parliamentary system is preferred by correct movement than presidential.
Correct.
And thirdly, on the economic provisions, you are for opening up the country for more investments.
Yes.
To
correct.
lift all these restrictions.
Yes.
And with the statement that if you have more FDIs, lesser corruption, because they have their laws in their countries that reaches them against bribery and corruption.
Yes.
Okay,
Correct.
so
Correct.
those are the main points.
Yes.
Correct?
I have to say extra points.
Final extra
Yes.
points.
In terms of the shape of this parliament, I am okay with bicameral, but just like every true parliamentary system, you will usually have a upper house that is weaker and more of a advisory, acting as an advisory body.
The Senate do not like that. But then
I
please
know they
proceed.
will not like that. But usually, I'm just giving an academic, perspective, no. Usually, what happens is this upper house is composed of elder statesmen. So, meaning to say, mga retirees, people who've nothing more to prove, mga 70 and above, and the active people are in the lower house. And that's where...
House of Lords,
yes. Yes.
Anyway,
That's
so
exactly what
can we
happens.
finish now so that
And then,
we'll hear the others?
Just last.
Last
For the part of yung terms changes, no? Walang term limits dapat, like a real parliamentary system. And then instead of...
Many will be against that, of lifting term limits. They don't want to have any change because they are precisely afraid of lifting term limits. So,
yeah, but
last point.
Yeah. Dun sa making it three years yung sa Senate, ang akin is yung House dapat maximum term is 5 years, like in Singapore, Malaysia, UK. 5 years yung lower house.
We like that, yes.
Tapos, hindi ako sumisipsip. Final,
because we are going to hear others.
Hindi ako sumisipsip.
Last statement.
Sinasabi ko lang, hahabaan yung sa baba. Tapos silang mga nasa Senate, I'm sorry to say, pero advisory sila and dapat mas matanda sila. Yun.
Thank you. With that, on that note, we thank Mr. Dumdum for your views. We will be putting all of your statements in a matrix that will help us decide what is the mode, what are the preferred amendments, and so forth. Okay, now the next one to be called is, before that, let me just, therefore, my good friends here, acknowledge first Honorable Nico Raul Daza, author of House Resolution 460 and House Bill number 5870. Would you wish to address the committee as author?
First of all, I would like to thank the committee for entertaining our bill. Together with my other co-authors, we appreciate the input of our stakeholders, and with that, I would like to use our explanatory note as our sponsorship remarks. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Put on record that the explanatory note of the Honorable Nico Daza is considered as his sponsorship speech for House Bill 460. House Resolution 460 and House Bill 5870. Now we'd like to recognize the Honorable 4th District Representative of Pampanga, the Honorable Ana York Bundok. Thank you very much. And so let's proceed with the next resource person.
He will be Mr. Leo Hernandez, sir, from the Philippine Constitution Reform Initiative.
My good friend Leo, we stayed at the EPIL dormitory at the UP College when we were taking up law in the College of Law. 4 years in dormitory. That's also a very good time for me. Thank you very much, Leo. You are recognized. Leo Hernandez, please.
Mongo and, Liempo. All the time. Okay, thank you very much, Committee Secretary, for calling my involvement in this very august assembly and very timely. And also to my dorm mate, the chair of the Constitutional Committee, Amendments, and the rest of the members of Congress, and also the panel members and other guests. Magandang hapon po sa inyong lahat. Maayong hapon sa inyong tanan. Maraming Bisaya dito All the while I thought there are only 3 of us. But there are others. Because Orion is Cebuano. That's original Cebuano. So our position, the People's Constitutional Reforms Initiative, is a presidential form of government, federal and unicameral. We have just given a copy of a 6 months work once a month to our chairman. We had a photo taking for his consideration, to look into it and to be submitted to the Constitutional Committee. Unicameral is not something new to us. The first, the Malolos Constitution, way back in the early 19th century, was unicameral, composed of the ilustrados and the brightest Filipinos. Federal, when I was second year, third year college in Ateneo de Davao, we were really hoping in the late 60s that we go federal. Because in 1965, our neighbor, Malaysia, was into it already. But you see, so many promises in the political campaigns about the federal form of government. But I don't know why, up to now, we haven't really executed any of the programs. As a matter of fact, the president, the incumbent president, is a member of the Partido Federal ng Pilipinas. And their legal counsel is George Brones from the UP Law, and also the Governor Tamayo as president. But no initiative on the major platform to be federal. Likewise, President Digong and the first DILG secretary, a former governor of Cotabato, was the president of the party, Laban. And it could have been very, very appropriate that DILG would initiate the federal form of government. And one of the USEC, may he rest in peace, was the NCR PDP Laban officer. But then, we haven't really started it. So we do hope that through this committee, what we initiated on August 30 of 2025, remember the strong rain for an hour, and you cannot even cross Viluna. The following day, there was a media forum by the mayor because it turned out there were billions worth of flood control headed by members of Congress, but didn't succeed. That's why in 1 hour, it was worse than Undoy. And it turned out that these particular flood control projects were under investigation. So on that day, at Victorino's restaurant, the People's Constitution Reform Initiative started with almost less than 50 people. And after which, every month, we would meet at Aberdeen Court and come up with our draft to be proposed as a new form of government for our Republic of the Philippines. Federal, unicameral, and presidential. Daghang salamat sa inyong tanan. Salamat po.
Thank you. And again, we thank Leo here, Professor Leo. You see, we have this copy, and this will be forming part of our committee. And except that page 2 is missing, and that's Article 1. Can you give me a copy where that is
we will
page 2? Because that is why Article 1 is the very important. That is the West Philippine Sea. That is where our fight with China is.
Yeah, that's
and
very
it's not here.
controversial,
So
probably.
can you just submit? So to summarize, Leo, you are for a federal system of government.
Yes.
Not unitary. Yes.
Yeah.
It's the federal versus unitary, you're federal. Form of government, you are parliamentary, unicameral, than having presidential.
Federal because of the geographical arrangements of our country, and this has been being also clamored by our Muslim brothers and other areas like the Cordilleras, you know. So I think it is very, very appropriate, and we have to consider that. I hope the committee will look into it.
Okay, so
Mr.
yes, we will be opening once you finish, but we will allow you now to come in.
No, Mr. Chair, it's very interesting what Mr. Leo said, because when I remember, in fact, I still have my pointers. No, when I was a mayor of Ormoc City, we were sent to Washington to study a little about federalism and if it will be effective for our country. And I remember writing down the points during our studies there. Yeah. I will not contradict what you said, but I will just let you know the results of our studies. No. Just give me 5 minutes, Mr. Chair. Okay, the debate over federalism in the Philippines has been a central political topic for decades. While proponents argue to decentralize power from Imperial Manila, critics point to several structural, economic, and social risks that could make it ineffective or even regressive to our country.
Yes.
I will shorten it. The risk of empowering political dynasties are lalakas yung feudalism. In many provinces, single family controls the executive, legislative, and economic layers of politics. There will be a lack of check and balance. That's a possibility. And then there'll also be an economic imbalance and revenue gaps. This is very important. In federalism, magkakaroon tayo ng rich state versus poor state, because for federalism to be effective, kailangan mayaman yung mga may pera sila. Dahil yung magkakaroon posible na magkaroon ng fiscal collapse because you're creating bureaus in every state.
Marami man tayong pera di ba sa TV? Pinakita nila.
Allow, Leo, let's just allow him to finish and then probably you can respond. It's very, very short.
There will be administrative costs, kakaroon ng redundancy. Each state would need its own assembly, courts, expanded bureaucracy. Magkakaroon ng pare-parehong layering. Yeah. So it's actually long, but I just wanted to tell you na
okay, thank you.
Ang problema lang sa federalism, kailangan mayaman tayo. In fact, I remember the one senator during our class, Mr. Chair, ang unang question niya is the Philippines rich? And I said, some cities are rich. Specifically, Metro Manila, the cities can sustain itself. But sabi niya, but sa Imperial Manila, yes sir. Kasi sinabi niya, kung meron kayong may hirap ng mga probinsya dyan or mga region, it might be ineffective.
We will continue after hearing everyone. Don't worry. We just allow, this is a very ranking member of the House. Okay. We allow him to speak, but everything will be after the presentations, and everyone will be give a list here. Those who wish to comment or to react to our resource persons, we do so from our members and also our resource persons.
Yeah.
Okay?
May I just conclude, Mr. Chair?
A concluding statement. Okay.
That our efforts for 6 months, we were paying for our meals, we spend so much, but it is actually a hybrid. Because we do respect the institutions of the House of Representatives, but we also recognize the people's initiative. It's almost 100, and there are luminaries who attended there, like Mr. Bonadaza, Professor Carlos, former Governor Padilla, and Governor Madrañas also of Batangas. So we are composed of other sectors, and there were deans of the College of Law, and so it is a different initiative. And so probably we can have a hybrid and talk about it and incorporate what we have done with the August Assembly of the House of Representatives. Salamat po.
In fact, can you give also other members of the committee a copy? Because this looks also good reading. And we have here all those who attended. And in fact, you're right. My good friend Bono Arasa, Mindanao Alliance is here. And then, of course, Raul Concepcion, of course, Dante Liban, on the others. So it will give others also.
We would request probably the Constitutions Committee to recopy it. We allow you, and then distribute it to the members.
Good idea. We will do that.
Good.
COMSEC
that will
reproduce
save
this.
us a lot.
It will not be as fine as this, but it will be good reading for everyone. Thank you very much. So now we proceed. Who is the next in the committee? The next one to be able to speak. We have finished already the NGOs, the non-governmental organizations. We are now going to government representatives. So now let us call the first one for government.
From the Board of Investments, Attorney Kyla Samson.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Very nice, yes.
Good afternoon to all our respectable representatives present here today. The position of the Board of Investments is that the
Attorney Kyla,
liberalization...
could you please move the microphone nearer?
Okay. The liberalization of key areas of the economy have long been proposed as one of the areas to attract foreign direct investments, or FDI. For instance, the annual Global Competitiveness Report by Switzerland-based International Institute for Management Development provides that the Philippines ranked 51st out of the 69 countries in 2025 in terms of competitiveness.
First?
51st out of 69.
Okay. Very low, huh? Okay.
This is a slight improvement from 2023 and 2024, where the Philippines ranked 52nd. The Philippines placed 13th out of 14 Asia-Pacific economies since 2021 in the said Global Competitiveness Report. As provided in the website of the International Institute for Management Development, the World Competitiveness Ranking is based on 333 competitiveness criteria selected as a result of comprehensive research using economic literature, international, national, and regional sources, and feedback from the business community, government agencies, and academics. In 2022, the Philippines ranked third most restrictive out of the 84 countries in the Organization for Economic Cooperation and Development, or OECD's FDI Regulatory Restrictiveness Index. The Philippines scored 0.374, just a few points behind Libya and Palestine, both scoring a total FDI index of 0.713 and 0.388 respectively. FDI restrictiveness is an OECD index gauging the restrictiveness of a country's FDI rules by looking at four main types of restrictions: foreign equity restrictions, discriminatory screening or approval mechanisms, restrictions on key foreign personnel, and operational restrictions. Implementation issues are not addressed, and factors such as the degree of transparency or discretion in granting approvals are not taken into account. The OECD also conducted an investment policy review of the Philippines in 2016, wherein one of its recommendations is to reconsider constitutional restrictions on foreign investment. Further, the 2019 World Bank Systematic Country Diagnostic of the Philippines recommends as one of the policy priorities of the country to achieve Ambition Natin 2040 to open the economy to competition through complementary actions such as amending the Public Services Act, loosening restrictions on foreign direct investments, and reducing non-tariff trade barriers. Previously, in 2013, the World Bank likewise recommended that, in addition to promoting domestic competition, more foreign participation would facilitate technology transfer and innovation, create more jobs, and raise productivity of workers. This entails 1. Amending the economic provisions of the 1987 Constitution by removing the explicit rigidity imposed on natural resources, public utilities, mass media, educational institutions, and the practice of professions, and giving the prerogative to impose such restrictions to Congress as is the case in other sectors. And 2, allowing more foreign ownership in key sectors such as telecommunications, shipping, financial services, and media sectors. These sectors are likely to have the largest gains from competition, capital, technology, and improved governance. The proposed revisions of the Constitution are in line with the government's commitment to improve its overall investment climate and address the foreign ownership limitations that has constrained investments in many sectors. This will also codify recent liberalization efforts proposed by the BOI, which were addressed through legislation or administrative issuances, such as the amendments to the Public Service Act, Retail Trade Liberalization Act, and Foreign Investments Act, Investors Lease Act, and lifting of foreign equity limitations in the energy sector. While the amendments of the above stated laws are considered game changers, many FDI restrictions have been enshrined directly in the Constitution rather than in an investment law or sectoral legislation, with the result that reforms have proved very difficult to enact. Mass media and education institutions would also benefit from liberalization in light of advances in technology or business models, such as delivery of educational programs through partnerships with international institutions or hybrid modes. Thus, the BOI supports the objective of enabling the Congress to enact laws necessary to implement reforms in particular sectors as may be deemed necessary under the national economic policy. The Constitution is the basic and fundamental law of the land. By nature, it prescribes the permanent framework of a system of government, assigns to the different departments their respective powers and duties, and establishes certain fixed principles on which the government is founded. The Constitution should be considered a living instrument that is able to adapt to the needs of society as it evolves, provided that the fundamental principles of government are maintained. Regarding the mode of the change, BOI defers to the wisdom of Congress after due consideration of factors such as resource requirements, efficiency, magnitude of the proposed changes, independence, and objectivity. The timing of the proposed revisions of the Constitution, however, should also be considered to ensure that fiscal and resource demands of a constitutional change would not impact the planned upward economic trajectory of the country. We thank the committee for giving us the opportunity to provide our position on the matter.
Thank you. So BOI, first of all, would leave to Congress the decision of which mode, either Constituent Assembly or CONCON, correct?
Yes, Your Honor.
And your only main point really is to really support the economic amendments to lift all prohibitions and limitations to foreign investments. That's correct?
Yes, Your
Thank
Honor.
you.
Thank you.
This representation will have to go to the Speaker. There is a courtesy called the Legal Education Board. And so therefore, I will lay the ground rules now on what will transpire. Our Vice Chair, Maurice Dumogan, will preside. Now, this is what, in case I could not come back immediately after the meeting with the Speaker and the Legal Education Board. We are going to make sure that all of your positions in summary form will be in the matrix. You have already made the matrix for the previous hearings, 2 hearings already. And in fact, we will incorporate the other experts who will not come anymore in this Congress because they have spoken and they are on record in the 17th, 18th, and 19th Congress. So that everybody here present and those who are not present. By the way, many called me that there are really very important committees going on. Energy, and then reforestation, and then others, eight meetings, so they're unable to come. And so therefore, to give time to everyone, to those present and to those who are not here present, to give them that matrix. And the date that we are going to decide, we will be having our recess on March 18. We will resume March 4, and our decision, May 4, and our decision on precisely the mode and what will be decided on in relation to what will be the preferred mode and the possible amendments that we may include there is that it will be on May 13. Take note, our congressmen, it will now be the members of Congress meeting. It's open to the public for our deliberation. So May 13 at 1 o'clock, same room, we will be meeting to decide already on whether, what form, and what mode we are going to agree on. Is that clear to our members? Okay, so with that, may I now turn over to our distinguished Vice Chairperson of this committee, the Honorable Maurice Dumogan, a veteran in Constitution and in this Congress. Former Vice Chairman. So we now would like to give to Maurice Dumogan. Thank you very much. We'll continue with the 2, and then those still with us may give questions to our resource person. Thank you so much. Dr. Santos, Mr. Dumdum, Sunny Africa, Leo, and the wife. You know, it's very important the wife is here because at home, I have only 2 rules. Number 1, always obey your wife. Number 2, in case of doubt, refer to rule number 1. So now we will hear the last 2, and we will then adjourn. So it will be our now Vice Chair Dumogan to preside. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Thank you. All right. With the authority transferred to me, I have no choice, but I have to continue to preside the proceedings.
All those who are present here are exempted from
Thank
the
you.
roll call this afternoon because of this hearing. Thank you again.
Yes, sir.
You have to go to the speaker.
Looking at what are in our agenda, is, actually, we are somewhat limited on what mode, because looking at the proposals, there are 8 resolutions calling for constitutional conventions and 3 for limited amendments through bicameral constituent assembly. Actually, that's the focus. But considering your very precious time, we have to listen with your views, which I am sure can help the committee later on the other issues. We have a lot of issues, but actually, these are the principal issues that the committee is being confronted right now, which our chair, had stated, will be voted upon on May 13, 1 o'clock in the afternoon. So with that, we now proceed with the next resource speaker. So may we now call the next resource speaker.
Mr. Chair, to represent the Philippine Economic Zone Authority, Attorney Gerardo Tan Jr. will present their position.
Good afternoon, to the Honorable Chair and to the Honorable Committee and to the distinguished guests. For PEZA, we would like to thank the Honorable Chair for inviting us to give our insights or input on this significant measure. PEZA concurs with the move to amend the economic provisions, specifically on Articles 12, 14, and 16 of the 1997 Constitution, to open and ease some industries to foreign participation. This move is to lift the economic restrictions in the Constitution, which is essential in this era of globalization. PEZA also recognized that easing these constitutional restrictions would address a long-standing limitations on foreign ownership due to overly protected provisions of the Constitution that have constrained the country's competitiveness. By opening the door to the greater foreign investment, the Philippines stands to benefit from long-term capital inflows, expanded business activity, and increased employment opportunities for the Filipinos. PEZA believes that these constitutional amendments, foreign investments, will expand livelihood and employment opportunities for Filipinos, since the entries of foreign investors will inevitably bring with a desirable foreign knowledge, technical skills, which will have to be passed to local talents through understudy or skills developments, which will have to be passed. It will also enhance the economic value of products, expand the scope of quality and volume of exports, and their access to foreign markets. We have to take note that the addition or placing of the phrase "unless otherwise provided by law" in the proposed amendments on the several constitutional provisions, which will empower the legislative department through legislation on whether to lift or ease the economic restrictions and to set the vital parameters in lifting the said restrictions. Since the power to lift the restriction is now left to the discretion of the Congress, the legislative process will become simpler and faster than amending the Constitution piece by piece. However, this expanded legislative discretion must be exercised with prudence. Any modification or economic restrictions should undergo a rigorous analysis, careful deliberations, consultation with the relevant experts, and to the public, to ensure that the resulting policies protect the long-term interests of the Filipino people and guard against those actions that may compromise the national security of the public welfare. In sum, these proposed amendments to the Constitution on the economic provisions increase both local and foreign investment, which can lead to the creation of more jobs among our beloved countrymen, the diversification of the economy, the advancement of technology, and an increase in competition, which will all contribute to the economic recovery and growth of the country, for which PEZA expressly its full support. For the question as to the mode on how to amend the Constitution, PEZA believes that as an investment promotion agency, we are mandated as a technical and competence through or we are focused primarily on economic zone. We will yield to the sound judgment or discretion of this honorable Congress, and as well as to the constitutional experts on this matter. And lastly, we will submit our position paper, which has already been submitted to our principal last December 5, 2025, to our committee secretary. That's all. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Attorney Tan. So that finished our resources speakers we invited this afternoon. So just for clarity for me, it appears that on the issues pending right now, on the mode of amending the Constitution, I think nearly majority is on constitutional convention. Correct? Except, of course, one who, siya po, Attorney Africa, who does not agree for an amendment of the Constitution. Now, the second, so there we are. So all the resources speakers favors constitutional convention.
Not also. There is one, the BOI, who will leave to Congress the decision.
Except, of course, the last speaker which says, leave it to the wisdom of Congress.
Yes.
Oh, so all constitutional convention. Okay? Now, next question that I want to be clear on record for purposes of this afternoon's proceedings is, of course, we heard one is for parliamentary. Think we heard it, Mr. Dondon, preferably parliamentary form of government. Now, as one, thank you. I am only one here, and fortunately you arrived. So let me acknowledge our colleague, Congressman, Honorable Congressman Benvenido Abante of the 6th District of Manila. Thank you for coming. So that's the result of our, well, we have some views. Like one that I heard a while ago is we remain presidential Republican. Is somebody in favor of that?
Yeah, presidential, yeah.
Presidential Republican. Now, is it, in your views, can I know how many are somewhat in favor of partially adapting the US style that we adopt both for the president, vice president, one only. It follows to the local governments. So we minimize the situation wherein the vice mayor is always wishing the mayor to die in order for him to replace, saying it bluntly, but actually not cooperating with the mayor. So on that issue, how many are somewhat in favor of that, or other other suggestion from the resources speakers? Yes, please.
Yan na lang, oh.
Yeah.
Sa tabi mo.
Okay.
Sir Chair, let's wait till di marinig ng stenographers. Hindi nakakonect.
Gamitin mo lang yung isa siguro.
Nagugutom ang mics.
Ito no.
Yeah.
Mr. Chair, just a minor point regarding the difference of having the election for the vote for the president is also the vote for the vice president, vis-a-vis in a local scenario where the mayor is also a vote for the vice mayor.
Yes, governor, vice mayor.
We do not agree, Mr. Chair, with respect to the local scenario, because in the locality, Mr. Chair, it is executive. The mayor is in the executive, while the vice mayor is in the legislative. So the check and balance is in a way prevented. If there will be no check and balance, if the vote for the mayor is also the vote for the vice mayor, we believe that ensuring the checks and balances by being elected separately. But for the president and the vice president, it's a different scenario because they are both in the executive.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Yes.
Yes,
Mr.
Sir Chairman, I just wanted to clarify. Actually, the idea of having the say governor and vice governor or mayor and vice mayor, where the vice mayor actually is the head of is the presiding officer of the legislative group, that was actually patterned after the U.S. presidential system, where in the USA, unlike in the Philippines, the vice president is actually the Senate president. So in reality, in the USA, the official title of the vice president of the USA is the vice president of the USA and president of the Senate. So actually, that's why they don't have a Senate president who is separate from the vice president. They only have a Senate president pro tempore. So that's the difference. So our system in the lower levels is actually patterned after the U.S. in that respect. However, I just wanted to add, there is already overwhelming evidence that parliamentary systems are just way too superior to presidential. We have to, as Filipinos, and this is for everyone, this is not just for one person, this is for everyone. Parliamentary systems are really superior. We have to stop thinking in terms of the presidential system, because we will continue to be in the same league as many of the countries in Latin America and Africa who are suffering because of the inherent defects that have long been studied and exposed by hundreds of international PhDs in economics and political science about the flaws, the inefficiencies of the presidential system. It's already very well documented. Now we have AI. If we do an AI search and AI research to find out which is better, lalabasan talaga yung mga more corrupt ang presidential, less prone to corruption ang parliamentary. Parliamentary systems are more able to create better economic outcomes, etc., etc. Less toxic ang politics, less personalistic, more party. Kasi party ang ang purisado ang mga tao. Kahit ang mga Malaysian, parang mga Pilipino, ang kultura, pero naka-parliamentary sila, they don't have the same level of toxicity that we have, na nagsisiraan ng tao, character assassination.
Thank you. Thank you. That's
substantially
the same with what you said a while ago. Parliamentary is a preference, so you do not agree on that. You is style na one party president, vice president, governor, vice governor. Now, do we have other views on that point? If none, how among our resource speakers, if we maintain presidential, what do we prefer, unicameral Congress or bicameral Congress? And if we go to bicameral Congress, who will somewhat suggest that senators must be elected by region, should not be nationwide, so that all the regions of the country will be represented in the Senate. Can we hear your views on that point? Yes.
So regardless of whether we go parliamentary or presidential, it is preferable to have a Senate that is regionally elected. At the same time, my preference is that we stick to the original intentions of what a Senate is. Senate, I don't know who took up Latin here before, but in the Latin language, senatus, comes from the root word sen, S-E-N, which is the same word for senile, senior, people who are older. So the word senex means old person. Yes, I'm not joking. Senex, meaning kasi Council of Elders ang Senate. Senatus Populusque Romanus. I mean, Senatus, Senate, old people who know more, wiser.
What you are suggesting, as part of the Constitution, one of the basic qualification is age requirement. You must be older, 60 years and above.
Yes. You must be, essentially, in most countries, the Senate is supposed to be for the retirees who have nothing more to prove. And in many countries, yung mga tinatawag nilang mga national scientists, national artists, automatic na pupunta sa Senate.
Okay.
Ganon na nangyayari usually.
So thank you.
Thank you.
Now, do you have other views on that point? Now, the next one, the term. Look, I heard a while ago that you are in favor of maintaining 6 years in the Senate. How about the local in members of Congress? Because take note, only in the Philippines, when nearly every year election. In politics, I hope it's wrong. I am wrong. Politics is one, to me, a very serious problem in our own system. So, why can 6 years sa Senate? Why can we not also give 6 years in the other elected offices? So that continuity more or less be, to be complemented by the law on recall. That non-performing elected officials can be recalled, but only them, not all over the country. Because to me, election is actually one of the things which is problematic in giving us serious problem.
If I may, Mr. Chair, I just wanted to add some trivia to everyone. No? Actually, the Philippines, in reality, our system is not really American. Our system, when you look under the hood, is actually Mexican. Mexican because we have what is known as the sexenio, which is the single 6-year term with no re-election. That's how our presidency was created. It's very similar to Mexico. It's exactly the same as Mexico. They also have a single 6-year term for their president. Their Senate is just like ours, 6 years, 6 years. So 6 years, 6 years, 12 years in total if you are re-elected. Then you have to rest. And then ours is, we have for the lower house, 3 years, 3 years, 3 years. In Mexico, it is 3 years, 3 years, stop. 3 years, 3 years, stop. We actually have a very, 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 very Mexican system. Therefore, we end up having Mexican results. Viva Mexico, cabrones!
Thank you. Do you have some other views on that point? Yes, please.
Mr. Chair, kasabihan nga po, 3 years is very short for a good leader. 6 years is very long for a bad one. But we agree with Mr. Chair's proposition that if the aspect of referendum will make it easier for the people to remove bad ones, then definitely we are in favor of lengthening the term so that they have some sense of continuity, but with that provision that people can easily remove local officials that are not doing their function.
That's really my view. Thank you very much. Now, how about on the point, if you look at the system of our governments, our one serious problem is continuity. Well, unfortunate to me again, that if you look at it, the one that calls the shots are elected officials. Despite the fact that elected officials are not career and permanent, they come and go, but they control the shots. Now, what will be the best solution on this one? So that continuity of the programs of government can be guaranteed, can be put somewhat a provision in the Constitution that more or less the elected officials will be sort of a policy-making body, so that partially, like in some of the local governments in the state, the implementer will be the administrator of one, so that the moment the plan is approved, we leave it already to the implementer, cannot be tinkered. Unlike what is happening to us, that if you are replaced as the mayor, everything that you have started, the one who will replace you, hindi maganda yan, papalitan, so mag-grade 1 na naman. After 3 years, kung napalitan na naman yan, the same story, and it's happening also in the national. So how do we address that problem?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So just to share, I'm sorry if I keep on saying this over and over again, but the parliamentary system is the answer for this. Why? Because the parliamentary system is party-based, it is policy-based. People are essentially voting not for the candidate per se. They are voting for the party that they want based on the platform of governance. And now, in a parliamentary system, you have unlimited terms. Unlimited terms, as long as you and your party continue to do a good job, you will be re-elected. Unlike in the system we have right now, which is very Mexican, unfortunately, the system we have was proven by a New York University academic named Dr. Pablo Querubin. When he looked at our system in the Philippines, where we have the 3 terms thing, no? After 9 years of re-election, naga 9 years ka, you cannot have a 4th term, but you still have probably some unfinished projects. What happens is, you let your son, your daughter, or your wife become the elected mayor because you still continue to have support. And so you will let that other person from your family run for office, and then you will go for vice. And that, according to the research of Dr. Pablo Querubin, it exacerbated and worsened dynasties in the Philippines, whereas previously to the 1987 Constitution, we did not have that bad as a problem. Previously, according to the research, we had thin dynasties. If there were dynasties, thin dynasties, those thin dynasties became fat dynasties, mga simultaneous sabay-sabay.
Thank you. I think Dr. Santos was raising your hands on that issue.
Yes, sir. Prior to my return to the Philippines last year, I served as a civil servant in Australia for 20 years. And in that, I was able to serve in various departments, including the Department of the Executive, meaning in a parliamentary federal system. So this is not the position of Philcoman, because earlier I said we do not endorse any particular form of government. However, from my own personal experience as a policy analyst that advised the head of governments, and we saw changes in administration, changes of ruling parties, the civil service in those in that setup are not partisan because we are not political appointees.
Yes.
And
They are career.
we are career executives with security of tenure. And as a result, during the caretaker period, when they issue the writs, so Parliament is dissolved, the one that actually runs the government is the head of our
Career.
department, a civil servant.
Yeah.
The one that, if there's war or a pandemic, they are authorized to act, but they are not authorized to sign any contract or hire anyone that will bind the subsequent elected official. And what we do during that time, during the election period, during caretaker mode, is we're not allowed to talk to the politicians. Those are what's called caretaker conventions. If they come and ask us, we are meant to report it because that is a violation of the code. We prepare the incoming government
That
briefs.
might be impossible in the Philippines.
Well, sir, that's why. No, but what I mean to say is, when the next government is elected, we already have the brief to present to them on how they can implement their agenda from day one. And there is no waiting period for confirmation of your cabinet, because in a parliamentary system, the front benchers are the cabinet. The shadow government will be the cabinet once they are elected. So I see many virtues in that system, because I saw that although there's a Senate and there's checks and balances, the government is not beholden to members of parliament for every vote, because they already carry the majority in the House. And usually once cabinet decides on an issue, they already command the majority on the floor. So the bill is already can be passed. And if the budget bill in particular, if you have a coalition government, the minimum standard for a coalition is to guarantee supply. Meaning to say, the budget of the government you have to support. Because if you do not support it, it is considered a confidence motion. If the bill is not passed on the floor, the government can fall. So your minimum requirement of signing up to a coalition is you must support. And that's why they don't need pork barrel. They don't need to influence the vote for the budget. They don't need insertions, because the cabinet is the one that decides. So there is greater control. And of course, through Q&A, PMQs, there is no impeachment in a parliamentary system. The British had the impeachment a few centuries ago. They still have that provision, but they don't use it. Why? Because it has already become obsolete.
Obsolete.
Because under a parliamentary system, you have question time, you have PMQs. So the public officials are held to high transparency and accountability, and if they lose the confidence of the House, they immediately must resign. So
Thank you.
That's my position, you said.
Thank you very much. Yes, Madam.
Mr. Chair, just a very quick point. On record, Mr. Chair, the Code NGO has not yet put a position whether presidential, federal, or parliamentary, but we would like to put on record that no system of government will be successful if our political party system is not strengthened. Yeah. Even if we adopt the parliamentary, if we continue the way political parties are run in the Philippines, where turcotism is just the name of the game, then no parliamentary system will succeed in the Philippines.
Well, it's really unfortunate because we are on earth, not in heaven. Actually, if you ask me, it should start from the individual values of the Filipino people. If we are not able to somewhat change our values, which to me it's problematic, if not corrupted problem. Yes, Apo.
Leo Hernandez, Mr. Chair.
On that issue.
This is just some sort of a reminder that in our agenda or in our program, we're supposed to adjourn at 3:30. Now, I wonder if members of the House, can you still extend to stay, or we have to wrap this up?
As I said a while ago, the important issue that we are here on is actually selecting the mode between constitutional convention or bicameral constituent assembly. But since you are here, we want to hear your views on certain important issues. As you had already said, because we did not limit you on the particular issue we have on the table.
You're right, Mr. Chair, because the majority of those who presented are really for a constitutional change. I'm just wondering if we can tackle the other topics during the next schedule. Probably our committee secretary can include that, because the topic that you just mentioned, the individual behavior, is very, very important. And probably we have to have someone from CHED and DEX to be present, because it is through our institutions of learning that we have the character molding of our people. Yes, di ba? Mayroon tayong, nung grade school natin, meron tayong
good
manners and right conduct.
Yeah, correct.
Ngayon, wala na eh. Wala nang conduct eh. Yeah. Pati good manners, wala na din. So anyway, as I said, we can continue, Mr. Chair. Even if next week you want to have a special meeting, we are available.
Thank you very much. Yes, of Africa.
Mr. Chair, I also have to apologize. I have to leave in a couple of minutes. But one important comment, I think it's incorrect to think na yung system of government ay parang damit, napapalitan mo lang, tapos everything changes. Siguro maganda pag-aralan ng komite, ilan ba yung bansa na dating presidential at naging parliamentary? We'd argue, handful lang yan eh. Pero mahalaga yun kasi yung mga napag-usapan about yung what institutions have in place, individual behavior, political culture, all of those form part of what will happen with the shift to a parliamentary system. So, key point talaga, wag i-assume automatically na basta baguhin yung sistema, all the things change. May konting path dependence. Gusto ko lang i-correct yung sobrang maling pag-iisip na parang damit yung system of government. Medyo makitin na pag-iisip at delikado. Ang dapat pag-aralan natin, hindi static, anong ginagawa ng parliamentary at presidential. Ang tignan natin, yung mga dating presidential na nag-parliamentary, umunlad ba sila o hindi? And I think medyo baka mas ma-refine ang konting analysis. But I also have to apologize, sir.
Yeah. Yes.
Una po ako, I have to excuse myself. Thank you.
So there are several countries from the ex-Soviet bloc. So there's Georgia, Armenia, there's Moldova, and there's a lot of other ex-Warsaw Pact countries. I'm sorry, dati akong Battle of the Brains guy, so ang dami kong alam. Pero hindi siya nagmamayabang. Sinasabi ko lang ang katotohanan, may marami talagang bansa na nag-change from presidential to parliamentary, and they have done a lot better. They have done a lot better. So, ito po ang katotohanan. And then also, I want to make it clear, itong idea about political parties. Ang political parties natin sa Pilipinas ay weak, is particularly explicitly because of our use of the presidential system we have right now. There is this book by the Japanese political scientist named Dr. Yuko Kasuya of Keio University. Her book is called Presidential Bandwagon, Parties and Party Systems in the Philippines. According to her research, under the 1935 Constitution, when we allowed the incumbent president to run for re-election, we actually ended up having a slightly more stable two major party system where we had a nationalista and liberal, and then probably a few hangers-on, mga third parties, fourth parties, na maliliit lang. But it was mainly two main parties. Once we had the 1987 Constitution, and we ended up having the Mexican sexenio, 6 years, we ended up having a plethora of parties and candidates. And the reason why, she said, ito yung explanation niya, In the old system, dahil pwedeng mag-run for re-election ang incumbent, yung mga would-be challengers ay takot sa incumbent dahil may power siya, incumbency advantage siya. So dapat tayo ay magko-consolidate. So yung mga gustong mag-run, na 3 siguro, 4, 5, magsasama-sama sila, they will get the strongest one para yung isang yan ay kukontra dun sa incumbent.
Thank you.
But when that did not happen anymore, in 1992, ang daming gustong mag-run, ayan, ilan ba? 7 yung candidates natin, magkakalapit pa ang kanilang votes, no?
Okay.
So, ganun. Anyway,
Thank you.
it's not true that you need to have a strong party system before you have a parliamentary system. Historically, England did not have strong parties, did not even have parties when they had a parliamentary system. It was the parliamentary system that forced them to end up having parties. The parties developed from the parliamentary system. Yun lang po, academic research lang po ito. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Now, before we end, can we now give the floor to our colleague, Congressman Abante?
Thank you,
You have the
Mr.
floor.
Chair. I'm so glad to be able to hear the different sides of politics here. Pero sa akin po, what we should be thinking about is this. Number one, masyadong expensive tong ating gobyerno. Number two, masyadong corrupt. So therefore, pag pinag-uusapan natin yung Constitutional Convention, whatever the polity of government that we would like to have, unang-una, dapat how can we save money? Kasi this is very expensive. How can we save money? Number two, how can we reduce corruption? May parliamentary o federal system o presidential system, yun dapat ang isip because we're not a rich country. We're not like the US. We're not like Japan that is quite rich. We're still a country that is still poor. Di ba? Poor pa rin tayo eh. Kahit nasabihin pa ni Ezra Recto na nasa ano na tayo, we are now in the what do you call this, average middle class country. We're still not, yung middle class natin dito, starvation wages sa Amerika eh. So the thing is, what we are thinking about is this: how can we save money? Pagkat itong bicameral na ito, itong Senado, itong Congress, sa totoo lang, hindi naman nananalo yung mahuhusay, nananalo yung mga artista. You know, the thing is, number two, how can we reduce corruption? Yun ang talagang nais natin. And number three, Mr. Chair, we would like to amend the Omnibus Election Code. Why? Because right now, pag wala kang pera, huwag ka nang tumakbo. Money talks na ngayon sa election. Money talks sa election. Kaya ako, nag-iisip na ako hindi nang tumakbo Dahil matanda na rin ako Di ba? Yun ang dapat nating isipin maigi. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. It's now about 4 o'clock. We express in behalf of the committee our gratitude to all the resource speakers. We know your time is very precious, but you did come this afternoon, share to us your views that I am sure can guide the committee on these issues later on that we are going to vote. So again, maraming salamat, and hopefully if you are needed, please be with us. This is our country. We need your views. We need your expertise. No one among us has the monopoly of knowledge. We have to do this with the hope that we can be able to select the best. We have to work together and possibly group those different views that we think it is best for our country. Not a particular one, but a collective views of each and every one of us. Again, maraming salamat. So can I hear now the motion to adjourn?
Mr. Chair, the favorite motion.
Okay.
Move to adjourn.
Well, there's a motion to adjourn. Anyway, those who will object can stay. Very much again. Thank you.